I had taken this route dozens of times. The road that stretched endlessly between my home and my grandparents' house was so familiar. I could probably drive it blindfolded, or so I thought. That night, something felt off. The road seemed unfamiliar, the trees pressing in closer than usual, their gnarled branches twisting like claws. I checked the GPS, but it was no help, stuck in an endless loop of recalculating. The unease grew heavier until I spotted a dim light flickering in the distance. Relief washed over me. A house, I thought. Maybe someone could help. But as I walked closer, the light revealed a weathered sign, Shady Shade Motel. The place looked like it belonged in a ghost story, but I had no other option. Inside, the receptionist, a frail old man, greeted me with a polite yet unsettling smile. When I asked for a mechanic, he simply said, "Morning is when the world works, son. You'll need to stay the night." He handed me a key labeled Room 13 and leaned forward, his milky eyes locking onto mine. "There are rules, you know," he said. 5 of them. If you can't follow them, I suggest you leave now. Failing to follow them, well, let's just say it has consequences. Room 13, huh? I tried to joke. Sounds lucky. He didn't laugh. That should have been my cue to walk out. But I was tired, cold, and desperate. So, I nodded and took the key. He listed the rules to me. Rule 1. Never open the door to anyone once you go inside, not even if it's someone you trust. Rule 2. No smoking in the motel area. Rule 3. Do not disturb or interact with other guests. Only I am friendly. Rule 4. If you need anything, call the desk by pressing 6 3 times on the phone present in your room. Keep it short. If I call you by name, disconnect immediately and unplug the phone for a while. Rule 5. The alarm clock in your room will ring at random times. Turn it off quickly. The sound attracts uninvited guests. I chuckled nervously. These serious? The old man didn't answer. He just stared at me, his smile gone. I muttered, "Fine," and headed to room 13. The room wasn't great, old wallpaper peeling off the walls, a bed that smelled musty, and that stupid alarm clock sitting on the nightstand. I tossed my bag on the bed and sat down, trying to shake the weird feeling in my gut. After a while, I managed to relax. Maybe this place wasn't so bad. That's when the alarm clock rang. It was loud and jarring, the kind of sound that shoots straight through your brain. I reached over, turned it off, and sat there for a moment, waiting. But nothing happened. No ghosts, no monsters. Just silence. I laughed at myself. This place is getting to me, I muttered. A couple of hours later, I still couldn't sleep. The room was freezing, and my nerves were shot. I thought, screw the rules. Who's gonna see me? I grabbed my cigarettes and headed to the parking lot. The cold air bit into my skin as I lit up. The first drag calmed me, and for a moment, I almost forgot where I was. Got a lighter? I jumped, nearly dropping my cigarette. A man had appeared out of nowhere, standing a few feet away. Yeah, I said, handing it to him. He lit his cigarette and took a long drag. For a while, we stood there in silence. Then he spoke. "Smoking ruined my life, you know." "Yeah?" I said, not really interested. He nodded. "Started young. A friend got me into it. By the time I realized what it was doing to me, it was too late. Lost my wife. Lost my money. Cancer took the rest." I glanced at him, feeling a little uncomfortable. "One night," he continued, "I came here. Decided I'd had enough." "Enough of what?" I asked. He turned to me, his eyes hollow. "Life." And then, he was gone. No sound, no footsteps. Just gone. The bushes near the woods started shaking violently, and scratching noises echoed from the darkness. My heart raced as I bolted back inside, slamming the door behind me. Around 3 a.m., the cold finally got to me. The thin blanket on the bed was useless, and I was shivering so hard I couldn't sleep. Reluctantly, I picked up the old rotary phone on the nightstand and dialed 63 times. Reception, a voice answered after one ring. "Hi," I said, my voice shaky. "Can I get a blanket? It's freezing in here." The line went quiet for a moment. Then the voice said, "Are you following the rules?" My stomach dropped. "Why yeah," I stammered. "I'm following them." The voice chuckled, a low, unsettling sound. "You sure about that?" I gripped the phone tighter, my heart pounding. I just need a blanket," I said, trying to end the call. "All right," the voice said. "But Nick, you shouldn't have been smoking." My blood ran cold. "And how was your stay at Grandpa's?" the voice added, casually. I slammed the phone down and unplugged it, my hands trembling. I climbed back into bed, wrapping myself in the thinnest blanket ever made. My mind was racing, replaying the call over and over. How did they know my name? Or that I'd been smoking? And then, just as I was starting to calm down, the alarm clock rang again. Groaning, I reached over and turned it off. But this time, I wasn't just annoyed, I was curious. I picked it up, flipped it over, and popped open the battery compartment. There were no batteries. I stared at it, my hands shaking. Then, in a fit of rage, I hurled it against the wall. It shattered into pieces, but the ringing didn't stop. It was louder now, mocking me. Panicking, I grabbed the pieces, opened the window, and threw them into the woods. "Let those guests deal with it," I muttered. A few minutes later, I heard a knock. "Nick?" It was my grandmother's voice. "Nick, it's us. Open the door." I froze. "We realized you left your work papers at our house. We've been driving all night and found your car," she called. My heart pounded. I wanted to believe it was her. But rule number 1 echoed in my head: never open the door. Not even if it's someone familiar calling your name. "Nick, please. Just open the door for a second," she pleaded. I clenched my fists and stayed quiet. Then, after a moment of silence, her voice softened. "We'll be waiting outside." I didn't dare move. My stomach churned. My grandmother had been dead for years. Somehow, I survived the night. When dawn broke, I gathered my courage and stepped out. The motel looked nothing like before. It was abandoned, covered in graffiti, with blood smeared on the walls. The reception desk was empty, the old man nowhere to be found. When I reached my car, a note was tucked under the wiper. "Thank you for staying at Shady Shade Motel. We hope you had a wonderful night. Please visit again soon." I sped away. I couldn't shake the terror of the night. Once I was far enough from the motel, I pulled over and called my grandfather. When I told him everything, the rules, the alarm clock, the stranger's story, and the knock at the door, he fell silent for a moment. Finally, he said, "I'm just glad you're okay. Go home, Nick." His words offered little comfort. Deep down, I knew I'd never have answers. The Shady Shade Motel wasn't just a place, it was something else entirely. Something I never wanted to understand.